Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. The Order of the Unnamed. Episode 2. Scrolls written in flame. The parchment should not have existed. Zero knew that before the lights returned. When the blue flames reignited one by one around the tree of forgotten names, the strip of parchment had vanished from her hand. But the words had not. Find him. They were no longer written on paper. They were written somewhere inside her. An instructor seized her wrist. What did you see? Zero blinked, forcing confusion across her face. I saw light. The masked figures stared at one another. One shook his head. She touched the tree. Impossible. The tree does not choose. The oldest instructor, the one with the cracked porcelain mask, watched in silence. Only when the others looked away did he make the slightest movement. One finger, barely noticeable, pointing toward the eastern corridor. Then he walked away without another word. That night, Zero didn't sleep. Neither did the monastery. The bells rang every hour now. Guards patrolled corridors that had once stood empty. Candles burned brighter. The mirrors had all been covered with black cloth. Whatever had awakened beneath the monastery. The order feared it, and that frightened Zero more than anything else. Orders were not supposed to fear. She slipped from her chamber just after midnight. The corridors stretched endlessly beneath silver moonlight pouring through impossible windows. She followed the direction the old instructor had shown her. East, past abandoned classrooms, past silent prayer halls, past statues whose faces had been carefully chiseled away. Everything here had once possessed an identity. Everything here had surrendered it. The deeper she walked, the older the monastery became. Stone blocks replaced polished marble. Torches replaced floating candles. Symbols covered the walls. Circles, eyes, flames, names scratched out with deliberate violence. Then, she reached a door. It wasn't locked. It had simply been forgotten. Dust covered its iron handles. Vines had grown across the frame despite being underground. Above it, faded letters remained barely readable. Archive. Someone had tried very hard to erase the word. They had failed. The door opened without a sound. Cold air drifted outward, not stale, fresh, as though someone had entered only moments earlier. Beyond lay an immense circular library unlike anything she had imagined. Shelves climbed into darkness beyond sight. Ladders moved by themselves. Books whispered quietly to one another. No candles burned. Instead, scrolls floating overhead emitted soft orange light. Fire, but fire that consumed nothing. The flames simply. Read. Zero stepped carefully inside. The door closed behind her. Immediately every floating scroll turned toward her. Hundreds of burning pages hovered silently in the darkness, watching. Then, one drifted downward, stopping inches before her face. Words slowly appeared within its fire. You remember. Zero swallowed. I do. The flame brightened. Then read. The scroll unrolled by itself. No ink marked its surface. Only fire. Letters formed from living flame crawled across ancient parchment without burning it. She began to read. The order was not created to erase memory. It was created to protect one. There existed once a name so dangerous that remembering it fractured kingdoms. One man carried that name willingly. When the kings failed to destroy him, he erased himself instead. The world forgot. Only the order remained. Its purpose was never obedience. Its purpose was imprisonment. The flames vanished. The scroll rolled shut. Zero frowned. A prison? A voice answered from behind. For a memory. She spun around. The old instructor stood in the shadows. His cracked mask reflected the firelight. You found it, he said quietly. I hoped you would. You knew this place existed. I remembered. You still remember? He laughed softly. No. He touched the crack in his porcelain mask. I merely remember forgetting. Zero stared. What does that mean? The memories don't disappear. He looked upward toward the floating scrolls. They wait. He led her deeper into the archive. The shelves became older. The books became stranger. Some were bound in bark. Others in polished bone. One appeared to breathe quietly as they passed. Finally they reached a circular chamber. At its center burned a single enormous flame. Blue, white, gold. Within the fire floated dozens of scrolls. Unlike the others, these did not drift. They orbited the flame, slowly, patiently. The instructor stopped. This is the forbidden archive. Why forbidden? Because these scrolls remember what we do not. Zero looked closer. Every scroll carried a seal. Broken, except one. Its seal remained untouched. Fresh red wax, marked with a single symbol. A tree. The same tree she had touched. What is that one? The instructor's visible eye darkened. I prayed no one would ever ask. Footsteps echoed suddenly through the library. The instructor stiffened. They've found us. He looked directly at Zero. Whatever happens. His voice became urgent. Read the sealed scroll. I don't understand. You don't have time. The footsteps multiplied. Masks appeared between shelves. Torches flared. Voices shouted. There. The instructor shoved her toward the flame. Go. Zero reached for the sealed scroll. The wax seal burned beneath her fingers. Not painfully. Recognizing. The seal broke. The scroll opened. Fire exploded upward. Words poured into her mind. Not read. Remembered. Founder. Elias. The name struck like lightning. Elias. The syllables echoed through her soul. The little boy. Golden leaves. The wooden sword. Her promise. Her brother. His name. Elias. She whispered. Tears spilled down her face before she understood why. The scroll continued. Founder of the Order of the Unnamed. First keeper of forgotten names. Creator of the right of erasure. Status. Missing. No. The word escaped without thought. Not him. It couldn't be him. The instructors stormed into the chamber. The old instructor drew a hidden dagger. Run. They ignored him. All of them stared only at Zero. At the scroll burning before her. One slowly removed his mask. Then another. Then another. Their faces were blank. Not hidden. Blank. Smooth skin without mouths. Without noses. Without eyes. As if identity itself had been carved away. Zero recoiled in horror. What happened to you? They answered together. He remembered. The chamber shook violently. The great central flame roared upward. Every floating scroll ignited at once. Fire spread across the library ceiling like a living sky. Books screamed. Shelves groaned. The archive itself seemed alive. One of the faceless instructors raised an empty hand. The founder must remain forgotten. Another stepped closer. The memory must remain imprisoned. The old instructor stood between them and Zero. You've forgotten your purpose. One faceless figure tilted its head. No. Its blank face somehow smiled. We perfected it. The floor cracked open. From the fissure beneath the library. Hands emerged. Thousands of them. Gray. Thin. Reaching upward. Not trying to escape. Trying to remember. Every hand clutched invisible things. Names. Faces. Lives. Zero stumbled backward as whispers flooded the chamber. Not random whispers. Names. Thousands upon thousands of names. Each spoken only once. Each immediately forgotten again. She covered her ears. It didn't help. The names came from inside her now. The old instructor shouted over the chaos. They're everyone the order erased. The memories? No. He looked at her with desperate urgency. The people. The truth froze her blood. The order hadn't merely stolen memories. It had stolen identities so completely that the victims themselves had become hollow vessels. Alive. Breathing. Empty. The hands below belonged to those who no longer existed anywhere except beneath the monastery. Waiting. Remembering. Forever. The great flame suddenly changed color. Blue became crimson. Crimson became black. Every scroll stopped moving. Every whisper ceased. Silence consumed the archive. A single voice echoed from within the black fire. Gentle. Familiar. Little sister. Zero couldn't breathe. The voice. She knew it. She had always known it. Elias? The fire rippled. A silhouette appeared inside the flames. Tall. Broad shoulders. one hand resting on the hilt of a sword she somehow recognized. "I knew you'd remember." Tears blurred her vision. "Where are you?" The silhouette smiled sadly. "Not where they told you." The faceless instructors dropped to their knees. Even the old instructor bowed his head. The silhouette looked past all of them. Directly at Zero. "They've lied about everything." The flames surged violently. The order was never meant to erase names. His voice hardened. It was built to protect one. Whose? Silence. Then, my own. The fire exploded. Outward. The library shook. Stone began collapsing from the ceiling. The silhouette reached toward her through the flames. "Find me before they do." The image shattered. The fire vanished. Darkness swallowed the archive. And somewhere far above the monastery, the great bell rang 13 times. A number no member of the order had ever heard. For more stories, like and subscribe.